All right, and we are back with the first episode of Gold Advantage covering week one of the summer split, third split of the year since the new format changes. Some things changed, some things don't, like XL being at the bottom of the table. I'm your host, Nikita. I'm back solo. BNB had a quick visit for our LCS episode yesterday, but couldn't make it today. I'm going to recap what happened in week one. Number one thing is I was absolutely vindicated in my tier list rankings where I put Mad Lions over G2 because I said G2 trolls, and what happens? Mad Lion wins, G2 trolls, and they're sitting at the top of the table after beating what I would argue are the two best teams, G2 and Vitality. On the other side of it, Fnatic is actually looking great. I want to talk about them. Heretics, XL, bottom of the table. I don't think there's too much to say about XL, to be honest. They made some late additions. The org is going through some problems. Team just doesn't look good. I don't think they're going to do anything. Heretics was a team that I thought might struggle. I wasn't sure how well things would click, but honestly, they've had a really good start and they've beaten the teams that they needed to beat. Sitting at top of the standings at the moment, 3-0, great beginning of the split for them, and it looks like they're guaranteed to go through to the next round, but they faced off against some pretty tough teams. They beat Vitality, they beat Astralis. That's not as impressive, but nonetheless an SK, and I think SK and Astralis are the teams that they had to beat to guarantee that top 8 finish, so really good performance out of them. Fnatic is the other team. What a great start. I think last split, it started off really rough in week one when Oscarinen was brought in, but he really got better in week two. And then as they got into groups, you could really see the improvements that they were making. And they were, one or two Nexus hits away from beating Mad Lions, which should have got them to the next round. And Mad Lions the one who won it at the end. So I think this improvement, Noah's come out. He looks absolutely cracked. He's being paired with a great support, Trimby, who I think brings a lot of good shot calling, direction, and understands how the game needs to be played. So a little bit of guidance to Noah. Yeah, I don't think there's much more to be said, but I think they're actually looking like a solid team. I really expect them to make it into groups, a fairly deep run into groups. Maybe if this continues, they might even be able to make it into playoffs. We'll have to see there. G2, I think just confirmed what I was trying to say about them is their skill ceiling super high. Without a doubt, they are one of the best teams in the LEC historically this season. There's no way you look at this roster and think they're not great, but they just seem to troll. And we saw Caps, he's messing around on Nico and they lose the game. Maybe it's because they're not taking these games too seriously. I'm a little bit more concerned. Normally, I've always said hey, don't look at them too much now. They care about how they end up in playoffs. The problem is last split they finished in 4th place. That's the concern there. I would like to see a bit more consistency out of them. I'm definitely not worrying about them. Look, that's why I put them in high tier A, low tier S. Their ceiling, best in Europe. At the worst, I think they're pretty much guaranteed a playoff team, but I want to see them competing for finals, not falling out in 4th place. And I think when they troll a bit, when they lose the focus, that's what's happening at the moment. And I don't know that they're good enough to just turn it on when they need to. At least last split they won. So, and at MSI, really wasn't the best showing from them. So, some red flags there. Mad Lions, though, that's what I said. Look, Mad Lions they're a team that personally, not the biggest fan of. I had a lot of doubts, particularly about the bot lane. I thought it would be a disaster. But when you look at the results that they've achieved in Winter Split and Spring Split, these are great results. Particularly winning the whole split. Didn't do great in MSI, but neither did G2, so I'm not sure necessarily that we want to dig into that too much. But yeah, this is a team that is clearly figured out how they want to play. It's working. I think the meta is working for them as well. I'm hesitant. I don't want to put them in tier S, but like I said, results are what matters, and they're sitting at 3-0. They beat two of the toughest teams. They're doing well, and it's foolish to look at the results that they're getting and pretend like they're not one of the best teams in the LEC at the moment. I think it's just straight up denial if we're talking about that, and if we're going to say and pretend like they're not. And I know, I feel very happy because we had some comments on the last video where people were saying I was dumb, didn't know what I was talking about, especially because I put the G2 below them technically. So look, all I can say was, I told you guys so, and I hope you listened to me. Outside of that, we have a lot of teams. Obviously, it's only 1 week. We have a lot of teams sitting at 1 and 2. SK and Astralis, SK particularly, I think, really doesn't look good, and they've been on a downward trajectory since winter, and it's one that I don't think I fully recognized in spring, but I made a short about this. They hadn't won a game in 9 weeks. They were on a 9-game losing streak. At one point, their bot lane looked really strong, but now they're getting caught out. They don't look as coordinated with the rest of the team. The team itself, I think, is having a lot of issues. Just, you look at Irrelevant in the top lane. He, I think in winter, was really pushing as like one of the best top laners in EU, let's say top 3, top 4. But he's fallen out there as well. Certus definitely not looking as good in mid lane. So they're having some real problems, and I just don't think they're going to be able to fix it this split. And I'm not exactly sure what's gone wrong with them, because looking from winter, but it seems that was really their peak, and now they're on that downward trajectory there. Vitality is... Vitality continues to be Vitality. They're sitting at 1 and 2. The loss to Mad Lions is fine. The win over SK is nothing to shout about. So the match against Heretics, this is the one that we're going to talk about. They were winning it. They were, 5k ahead. One bad fight, they get wiped, and Heretics win the game. Really, Vitality was winning that fight and should have taken home the win, but I think that is the perfect example of what's wrong with Vitality at the moment. They should be winning the LEC. We saw it in the playoffs during spring. They dominated all of it until the very end. Playoffs start, suddenly they completely fall apart in the course of a week. And it's these sorts of mistakes where you're winning the game, you're 5k ahead, everything is good, then you get team wiped, and Heretics just walks in, wins the match with a 3k gold deficit. So it's hard to... This is, G2, you can point to them trolling. With Vitality, it almost feels like the org is cursed. That it doesn't matter what players they have on their team, how well they're clicking, how hyped they are. Things just don't seem to work out for them. And I don't know what to do, because we're now getting into the third split. It's been long enough. They really should be clicking, and they should be dominating at this point. And I don't know if this is also a continuation of the collapse that they had at the end of playoffs last year. We'll have to see what happens there. Anyway, this week, now one team I'm going to highlight is really BDS. I think they had a rough start. I don't think we should overlook the fact that they made it to finals despite losing in finals, how strong they dominated. Yes, teams are now starting to ban out Adam, but if it's as simple as that, it would have happened before. So I think they're going to bounce back after week 1. They faced off against SK on day 1. They have even odds of 1.85. I think that is outrageous. You should 100% jump on BDS there. Outside of that, a lot of the odds are very heavily skewed towards the favorite. You could maybe take Fnatic over Koi at a 1.5. I don't love it, but it's a bit low, but it's worth taking. I think you can get a bit of value there. I do actually really like the Vitality over G2 at 2.4. As I said, G2 trolls a little bit. They are not looking as clean and dominant as they used to. I think Vitality is going to be really annoyed about the loss to Heretics, and they know that G2 is their main rival. Whether they're at the top of the leaderboards or not. I think G2 is always going to be the rival that people want to beat. So they're going to come in very focused. G2 might also, but I think the 2.4 odds on Vitality is too generous, and it's worth taking advantage of that. Outside of that, I think the favorites are just too low, and it's the same for day 2. There's a lot of favorites that are very heavily skewed. I think BDS, you could take a 1.5 again there. I don't believe in XL. I think they're all just playing individually. I think they're playing poorly, and I don't think they're playing well as a team. And like I said, BDS, I expect will jump back. Vitality win over Astralis as well at 1.5. I don't love these 1.5 odds, but you can take them if you're really looking to find something. Otherwise, the Fnatic 2.35 over Mad Lions at 1.52. I think that's actually worth taking. Fnatic really seems to have the momentum behind them. The fans are behind them. The org and the players seem to be doing well. Really impressed by Noah. I've just sung the praises of Mad Lions, so it's definitely, I wouldn't bet too heavily. But if Fnatic get a good draft, I would jump on that really quickly, because they're definitely good enough. Then day 3, again, the odds are very skewed here. I really like the BDS over Heretics. 2.35 I think is wild for a team that just made it to finals and essentially dominated the LEC last split. So yes, they had a bad week 1, and yes, Heretics have had a good week 1, but let's not pretend like Heretics were not a bottom of the table team last split and that BDS was not a top of the table team. Heretics have made significant improvements, but are we saying now that Heretics are going to make the finals, whereas BDS is not even close to that? It's a bit quick to say that. So 2.35 is ridiculous. I would jump on that. I think there's a lot of Jankos fanboys who are betting on Heretics that are pushing those odds up on BDS. I would definitely grab that. Outside of that, you have Koi and SK that are at 1.85 even. As I said in the intro, I'm worried about SK, but I also think Koi is not good. And I predicted that they wouldn't make playoffs last split. That actually happened. I'm concerned. I don't think they fixed anything, basically. Shigenda has shown some signs of improvement, but the whole team just doesn't look good. And I don't think picking up at VN is an improvement. As I said in my rankings, I think losing Trimby was not the right move. So I don't know who will win out of these two teams, so I wouldn't pre-bet this. Maybe live bet it if you see the right odds. But both of these teams, I think, are shaky. The Fnatic Vitality, at even odds, I would take Vitality. So 1.85 for Vitality, I think is very good. But I kind of want to see how they play throughout the week. Right now, I think 1.85 for Vitality is where I would go. But at the same time, this might be a really good bet for Fnatic, especially if Fnatic loses to Mad Lions. I mean, if they lose to Koi, those odds will shoot up through the roof. But I'm bullish on Fnatic at the moment, but I don't think these odds are good enough to take Fnatic over Vitality at this stage. I'll see how days 1 and 2 go. We'll probably update it there as we go from there. But that's about it. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to come out on top this week. Do you think G2 is going to turn it around? If you are the guys who commented last week, just admit I was right. Just come and comment, give us a like, give us a subscribe. And if you want to talk about this, or if you really want to dig into the analytics of it, join our Discord. We have a link just down below. There's a couple of guys who have their models down there, love talking shop about it. And it's actually really interesting around the kill spreads and the kill handicaps. It's worth checking out there. A lot of value to be made. And that wraps it up. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We really appreciate it. Check out the LCS episode that came out yesterday. And otherwise, we have a couple of shorts that are coming out pretty soon as well. So check those out. So have a great day and bye, everyone.